The Monterey Peninsula, an appealing part of Central California, has an array of sights to see, including Cannery Row. This Pacific coastline, famously painted into American literature by John Steinbeck, is for us enhanced by the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna, Seca and Ferrari racing days. The second round of the Ferrari Challenge North America embraced this undulating racing circuit, widely anticipated by the fans and the teams. The drivers will deliver when they take to the tarmac, and at the end of the weekend, those that are victorious will have earned their accolades. Forza Ferrari. Hello everyone, and look at these weather conditions in California. You wouldn't believe it, would you? Hot-footed as I have from Alton Park in the UK, which is renowned, of course, for weather. I expected glorious sunshine and absolutely lovely temperatures. It's neither of those at the moment, as we are about to get our 488 cars out there on track for qualifying. It's very different indeed. Lots of low mist hanging around, and actually just one or two little drizzles of rain as well. Going to make the conditions very difficult for our drivers that are going to go out there in qualifying, the mix of Pirelli and Shell 488 Challenge drivers. So this is our second event in what is a phenomenal 2024 calendar. The cars having raced in the opening round in Texas, the Circuit of the Americas, and we'll be showing you the calendar in just a moment as to just what you can look forward to in the course of our 2024 year. But if you'd like me to tease you, which I can, WeatherTech here in Laguna Seca, the WeatherTech Raceway. This is where we are right now. From here we will head off to lots of other tracks. But for the moment, let's take a look at the track here. 11 turns, 7 left, 4 right. It's about 3.6 kilometers, and it really is very undulating, that's for sure. And is a real test for the drivers. And the sequence of turns 7, 8, and 8A, the famed corkscrew. So let's take a look at the weather conditions, and not very balmy at the moment for whatever reason. And there you can see the mist hanging down over the paddock area. Alongside me, delighted to welcome back, following his probationary period at COTA, which he passed, Tony Verlander.
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, everyone. But one question, Dave. Is the weather following you?
No.
I had a Miami weekend, which was beautiful.
No.
In Austin, was raining, and now we're here again.
No, in Alton Park, Tony, I promise you, I was in my shorts.
Oh, yeah,
It was so nice. Yeah, all right, yeah, not a particularly nice sight. These, in all seriousness, Tony, this Laguna Seca Raceway is a tricky one to master, and it's made trickier, isn't it, by these conditions?
Yeah, that is absolutely right. This is a beautiful track. I would use the term old school.
Yes.
It feels like this track was always like this. It was supposed to be like this. Not anything modern design, but it's a beautiful track. A lot of elevation changes. We see here in the pictures the corkscrew, very famous corner around the world. It is tricky track to manage on dry conditions because of the tire wear. Also the dirt, the sand that is outside the tarmac, it comes very easily on the racing line, and drivers and teams are struggling to get the setup right. Over the years, the tire degradation has been very high, but they repaved the track last year, and that improved a little bit. We see those green areas outside the curb. Before they didn't exist, so those are little help, little improvement for the drivers. Some say we lost a little bit of character, helping the drivers to get more wider lines outside the corners, but today's key is the tires, the tire temperature, 50 Fahrenheit, 10 Celsius. It's almost like, not winter, but it's difficult. Yeah, it's close.
Thank you, Tony. Of course, we will hear from Tony during the course of the proceedings today, of which we've got qualifying and racing to come as well. And, of course, Tony is, like myself, just a bit part player, really. We're both here in support of the lovely Shay Adam. Good morning, Shay.
Good morning, Dave, and thank you so much. Welcome to Laguna, not so Seca as it is this week. The dry lake, actively with a little bit of water in the air. It's this marine layer that refuses to burn off. And in the meantime, it's dropping moisture on the racetrack. Very similar conditions to what we had yesterday for the first official practice session for each of our 3 championships. But the interesting thing, we still have dry weather Pirellis ready to go, sticker tires for each of the competitors going out for this qualifying session. And what are they trying to get? Well, everybody wants their nice little trophy, the Pole Award by Pirelli. We've got 3 of these to hand out, 488 first, and they're going out on their out lap now. Who do you think's going to take it? Yesterday, the fast lap in these conditions was a 29.9 by Matthias Perez-Cabanc.
Interesting. Tip for the top, Tony, and Matthias, you highlighted when we were in Circuit of the Americas, you know, a well-known name in terms of a racing family, but you know, when you look at Jason McCarthy and Mark Musso, I mean, the lineup is littered with talent, and therefore great opportunities for somebody to make good in what will be. It's gonna be who's gonna master these conditions, I would think.
Yeah, exactly. All the drivers and teams know this 488 challenge car really well, but the change of condition makes it more difficult with the tire pressures. Which tires to choose? Do we start with the rain tires and later on even try to tire change it to the slick tires, tire pressure? 20 minutes, we stay out the whole session, and the fastest lap times, are they in the beginning with the less rain, or does the track dry out towards the end of the session? So those are the questions that drivers and teams are going through.
Lance Corley in the all-red 488 Challenge Evo, you can see there from the Ferrari of Atlanta organisation, returning to racing. Great to see Lance back out on track once again. A very formidable driver, that's for sure. And, well, you can see there's just the elements, Tony, immediately of spray coming off the back of the cars. Now, it's not monsoon-like, so it isn't going to impact visibility initially, but it depends. If it eases off, if it doesn't ease off, the conditions are going to be fairly constantly changing, and the track will evolve during the course of the session. And the point that you make, which I think is absolutely accurate, is that all the big news in terms of the lap times is going to come towards the end of the session, presumably.
Yeah, if the rain stays consistent like this, or even eases off a bit, most likely the lap times it will improve towards the end. Now we see drivers taking it really easily, just seeing the track condition and pacing themselves before we go actually to see the real fast lap. Because of the elevation, the track is not consistently wet, so it's also difficult for the rain tires to last, to have performance, because there's not enough water for those tire blocks that are inside the rain tires. So it is sort of like a mixed condition, and a lot of is up also to the driver talent now to make most out of it.
It's a point that you've mentioned previously, Tony, and it's one that I've taken on board, that, you know, for wet weather tyres to work at their best, you need wet. You know, it's no good it being drying. You know, the tyres have to be kept into that temperature window with regards to needing the moisture on the ground. So, therefore, it's going to be a really tricky decision for these drivers to take. And we're watching Stephen Chen from Ferrari of Houston. Now, of course, he opened his campaign this year with a podium place, a P3 in the first race at Circuit of the Americas, and then finished the second race, P16, which gives you some idea of, P10, which gives you just some idea how competitive this 488 Challenge is, and remains within the Ferrari Challenge. So it's Henry Hummel now who's gone quickest of our Shell drivers, and Guido Svatslovas now is second there in terms of where we're looking. Of course, we've got the Pirelli drivers who've got the red strip across the top of the windscreen, and our Shell drivers that have the yellow strip across the top of the windscreen. That makes it easier for you, hopefully, to identify the drivers that are out there on the track at the moment, and beginning to see just some of those drivers. Big thanks to Lorne, one of our tech team behind me here, whose name I got wrong yesterday. Can you believe that, Tony?
Yeah, I'm really bad with names
You gave
as
me
well.
a very good thrashing.
I can tell you a few occasions over the last 30 years where I got the names wrong, so don't worry about it.
Now, no surprise here. In the early stages of this running, Jason McCarthy, who, as you mentioned, Tony, is one of those drivers that has a dual campaign, both in the 488 Challenge car and also in the new 296s. For Wide World Ferrari, he's gone fastest, and he's gone fastest by quite a big margin, some 3 seconds as we look at the car of Jason McCarthy, the very man that we're talking about for Wide World Ferrari. Now, Jason knows this track really, really well. He's getting a lot of seat time because he's running in both cars, ignoring the fact that it's very difficult to switch from one car to another. Jason is one of those evergreen drivers that has always got the ability to turn it in. After saying that, Massimo Perina has just gone quickest.
Yeah, Jason's performance now doesn't really surprise me. I saw very brave and also a little bit aggressive driving in Austin, and he has a great car control. He was struggling a bit with the 296 over the race pace, but I don't think it's up to him, up to the driver. There was some issues that were taking some lap time, and he was a little bit off the pace during the last part of the race.
Yep.
But as comes to his driving, the restarts, the actual race start, he was really aggressive, looking for those outside moves into turn 1 in Coda, and like I said, great car control. And this is the way you can easily spot a driver with the talent. When the conditions change, it's not only about the car or the tires, you need to have the driver on it as well. If we talk about a dry conditions, 1/10. Here in the rain, it can be 1 second, and that shows that some drivers are more confident with the difficult track conditions.
Well, Massimo Perina was momentarily at the top of the chart. He's now dropped down to P3, having been bested by Eric Pan and also the man that we were talking about, Jason McCarthy. They are Pirelli drivers, the best of the Shell drivers. He's Stephen Chen, and there's Guido Svenslovas ahead of Eric Hurd. They are the top 3 for the Shell drivers. So the mix of Pirelli and Shell drivers then, as the mist continues to envelop the start-finish straight here as we go backtracking Massimo Perina, who has just taken further time out of Jason McCarthy. And we're looking at big lumps of time, Tony, that are coming out as the tyres get up to temperature, presumably. The gaps are now 1.4 between P1 and P2. And we've got such a spread of times because, we've got 1:33.796 at the moment as being the best. And, we've got cars in the 142s and 143s as well. And big shout out to Henry Hummel then in the Ferrari Lake Forest Shell 488 Challenge Evo. He's just gone quickest in class, and bearing in mind this is only his second racing event, Tony, so good credit there. Mark Musso, we can see in the brightly coloured Ferrari of Ontario car. Mark Musso, who has driven with that familiar number 11, number 12, number 13 even. Get your glasses on, Dave. He had a reasonable time of it in COTA, taking a P3 and a P7, and he'll be hoping to get back onto the podium, achieving form during the course of this weekend here at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, we have quite a large grid also in the 488. Getting a clear lap, we have a big difference in lap times, like you mentioned, and that also is difficult for the driver to predict. Leave a gap to a driver in front, and then if you go relatively, let's say, few seconds quicker, it's easy to catch up a group of drivers. And like we saw now, Mark Musso was in a 3-4 car pile-up, so it's difficult to get an improvement for the lap time. And like we saw in Austin, in Coda, this will be a session where the timing and scoring will be changing all the time, and it's down to the last laps to see who is on pole.
I was extolling the virtues of Henry Hummel going P1 in Shell. Well, he's now been bested by Gregory Hopkins, who's gone fastest, as we watch the Omar Balkasoon car now. And Omar Balkasoon, another very, very talented driver in the Ferrari Challenge. Took a brace of P8s when in COTA, and once again, this is Jason McCarthy for Wide World Ferrari, who, making the very point that Tony made just a moment ago, you have to navigate the traffic that's out there on track as well to find a way through and find a way round and to optimise your lap here. It gives me the impression, Tony, and you and I spent some time at the corkscrew yesterday. It gives me the impression that this circuit now, racing drivers never take any time off in regards to, when you're in a race. We often talk about this as broadcasters that, he's got an opportunity to take a breath now. You don't really have the opportunity to take a breath. I realise that, but here at Laguna Seca, even more so, it seems to me like you're on it pretty much the entire lap, Tony.
Yeah, it's relatively short lap, a track which requires a good flow in your driving. There is some hard braking zones, like into turn 1, like we see now, or let's say turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. But overall, the track requires a good flow.
Yes.
Play with the brake pressure. Don't kill the speed too much going into the corners. And some drivers, they do use a lot more energy. There's actually been some studies, even with the highest level of drivers, Formula 1, IndyCar. There's a big variation, even to 30 to 40%, how much more energy some driver use compared to another driver. So it's down to the heartbeat, the level of concentration, and how much it takes out of you. Some drivers are more relaxed behind the wheel. Some drivers need a little bit more aggression to get the most out of them. So there's a big difference between the personalities and drivers.
Yeah, that's a point I'm going to pick up on with you, because that's something that I've noticed in my career as we watch Matt Dalton in the 133 car. He, of course, took a podium P2 in the second race at Circuit of the Americas, and he'll be hoping to continue that rich vein of form during the course of this weekend here in Laguna Seca. Just to bring you up to speed on who's doing what, you can see the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen. If the position number is coloured in red, it means it's a Trofeo Pirelli driver. If the position number is covered in yellow, it means they're a Shell driver. Best of the Shells at the moment, Gregory Hopkins ahead of Matt Dalton, and then it's Brad Evans. They are the top three as we watch Louis Peruschia, who was racing just a couple of weekends ago in Mugello in Italy. Louis is one of those drivers, as a number of our regional drivers do, whether from North America or Japan or the UK, that choose to race in the series in Europe as well. It's valuable seat time, of course, but for Louis, he continuing a fine campaign in the Ferrari Challenge here in North America in the 488 Challenge Evo. So it's Perina, McCarthy and Szczesniak who are now the top three in the 488 Challenge Evo for Trofeo Pirelli. For the Shell driver sits Hopkins from Dalton, from Evans currently. Just want to pick up on something you were saying there about the different levels and the percentage actually difference of physical exertion in comparison between some drivers. Part of it is also mental exertion as well, isn't it, Tony? I mean, you go into it, and I often feel we see some of the best performances from racing drivers almost when they've been dealt a really poor hand, and the qualifying, for whatever the reason, just hasn't come together, and they're starting further back down the order than they would like to. That almost seems to give them a further boost in terms of utter determination. And that's when you see some of the best driving from a particular driver.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. You see the sort of fighting spirit. You see it from Leclerc, you see it from Hamilton in Formula 1, but you saw with those drivers already when they were 10, 13 or 15 years old and doing go-kart or the minor single-seater category. So this is something that comes with the character and the spirit of never giving up, and that is one of the big qualities to have behind the wheel. Always fight, and the race and the game is never over until the checkered flag. So there's always a chance. You never know what's going to happen in the race. Even today, the qualifying with these mixed conditions will change the grid a bit. There's not the same drivers that with a completely slick track would have been up there. Some drivers are performing better, and some drivers are struggling this morning in this difficult qualifying one. But then in the race is another opportunity.
Brad Falver we were looking at there, who's currently P5 in the qualifying chart at the moment. P5 overall and P5 within class, of course, Trofeo Pirelli. He is a Pirelli driver climbing up the hill now. And because it's such a short, sharp qualifying session, teams play a very, very important part in this as well, Tony, because it's sending your driver out onto track when you're going to have track space around you. And for the moment, the two at the top of the chart, Massimo Perena and Jason McCarthy choosing to park the car in the pit lane as we watch the all-yellow machine of Eric Pan now. Eric Pan is currently fourth fastest for Ferrari Beverly Hills. That would be a second-row start if everything stayed the way it is. But we are beginning to run out of time now because there are just under 5 minutes of this session remaining. I love the theatre almost of this short, sharp qualifying, Tony, because you've got to go out there, you've got to be on it, and you've got to deliver.
Yeah, that is true. But also, like you mentioned before, is a lot about the communication. These drivers, most of them have a driver coach, communication with the driver, but also the teams. How is the track? How are the tire pressures? Where you at on the grid right now? Timing and scoring, you are improving, keep doing what you're doing. Or if the driver says, hey, this is all I got, then the team needs to react. So, like I said, a lot of it is also down to a communication and being wake up in the moment. What is required by the driver? Is it something we can do? Hey, we have only 3 minutes to go. Now we need to push, and we talk later in the pits. So this is the thing with the sharp qualifying, and I do like this format.
Yes, me too. And you know, you bring up another constituent part of when a driver is successful, as you look at Bernard Gomez then in that lovely red and white 488 Challenge Evo, and that is the relationship any driver has with his driver coach. As a driver, presumably as a driver coach, you want your driver to be a sponge, to be able to accept everything that is being told to you. And you and I know hundreds and hundreds of driver coaches, and here this weekend there are lots and lots of them, from Daniel Mancinelli to Alessandro Balzan, and these are drivers that are winning racing drivers in their own right, but each driver responds to their driver coach in a particularly different way. And I'm thinking of your friend and fellow countryman who was very sharp on occasions on the radio to say, "Naff off, leave me alone, I know what I'm doing." Now, Tony, you would never be so rude as to do that, I know, but sometimes you can almost be pestered, can't you? So you've got to develop that relationship and know when to offer your advice and when not to.
Yeah, that was the key word, like to develop the relationship, to understand what the individual driver needs. Does he need a little bit of aggression to wake him up, or just a smooth communication is the best way to do, because already by himself he's in aggression level.
Yes.
That's enough. So it's an individual game, and you learn it with the experience on track days when you're testing, and difficult situations show straight away how the driver reacts. And I have to say, I think the track condition is a little bit more drier than in the beginning or halfway of the session. You see less water coming out from the tires. There's no spray on the main straight. So also the way the drivers are leaning to their tires on these faster corners, a little bit more understeer, so the wet tires are wearing out a little bit. Downhill towards the last part of the track, there is still some damp areas, but the conditions are quite consistent now.
Very interestingly, right in the closing stages of this, Jason McCarthy has come back out again. He was stationary in the pit lane, but he's come back out again, Tony. And he clearly feels that the evolution of the track, as you were talking about, is coming to these drivers, and therefore he's proved that, because he has taken merely 2 100ths, just 2 100ths, but it's enough to put him P1 over Massimo Perena. Now, this earlier on, just a few moments ago, was going straight on there in the Frank Szczesniak car. Now, thankfully, he kept his wits about him and was able just to shortcut that and get back out onto the track again right in the closing stages of this qualifying session. Oh, and someone else has gone around there, Tony.
Yeah, this is the corner towards the corkscrew, so turn 6. Maybe a touch on the outside curb, because you see drivers are getting confident with the racetrack, but the outside curbs are still more wet, more damp. So there you go.
Just kicked one wheel off that green and into the gravel, and that's enough to unsettle the car, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So
you've really got to be pinpoint accurate in terms of where you position your car.
And this is very characteristic for the tracks in North America. You don't have a lot of runoff areas. There's not a big margin for errors here, so you need to be really on it.
So this is very much what you were talking about, this old school type of circuit. Exactly. It's going to bite you on the bottom, isn't it? And it's certainly bit Eric Hurd on the bottom, and he's come in, and Jason McCarthy then he's going to be able to get another lap in, Tony, because we've got 14 seconds left on the clock as he drag races now over the start-finish straight and into turn number 1. This is heavy braking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you can see Jason is really on it. He has a lot of confidence under braking, but also when you are with those wet tires on track and it starts to dry out a bit, you go to the pits, you lower the pressures, and even the out lap, the first lap when you come out of the pits, that might be the important one because you are still not really overheating the tires. And now it's you can see the drivers are really on it. They have the information that next time by you will get the checkered flag, so this is their last lap.
This is a real ding-dong battle going on between Jason McCarthy and Massimo Perina, because here is Perina who's trying to respond to the fact that McCarthy has taken 2 100ths out of him. Let me just throw a curve ball into this, Tony, and you'll tell me I'm being a fool. The likes of McCarthy and Perina, who sat for a while in the pit lane before coming out again, have they been so bold as to mix those tyres up, or do you think it's still too damp?
We would see a big jump in the lap times, and this might be it. This might be it
because that's a big lump, isn't it?
Yes. When you see a big improvement, suddenly that might be it, that you risked it towards the end of the session and put in slick tires, and that might be the case because after 20 minutes, if you improve suddenly, last lap of 1.6 seconds, whoa, what a movement! Whoa,
Jason,
almost a contact.
He dived out of that to avoid that contact, but what that's done is it's compromised his last lap, so that means that Massimo Perina is going to have that P1 start for the race to come. So Perina then, a very, very bold effort, and he timed it just perfectly because Jason McCarthy, who was on another hot lap, wasn't able to get that lap in because of traffic towards the end of the lap, and did a very good job in avoiding, but it's still going to be a front row start. It's Perina from McCarthy, from Broughton and Falva, Porter, Cesniak and Musso. They're the top 7 in terms of the Pirelli drivers. Now, Joel Rosenbacher for the Shell drivers with a very impressive 1:34.564 is the quickest Shell driver. Now, Greg Hopkins and Guido Vadslovas are still out there at the moment, so this is far from over yet because drivers can and still do improve before the end of the session. Basically what it means is if you cross the timing line any time before the clock has counted down to 0, the next lap that you're on still counts in this qualifying session. So all our Pirelli drivers are just about done and dusted. If I'm honest with you, credit to all our drivers, because I expected there to be 1 or 2 offs potentially in the constantly changing conditions, but they coped with it relatively well. Let's take a look at the full results then, and this is the way it looks. They'll be on our screen in just a moment, as if by magic. Massimo Perina from Jason McCarthy from Logan Broughton, the top 3, ahead of Brad Falva, Michael Porter, Frank Cesniak and Mark Musso. For our Shell drivers, Joel Rosenbacher then, P1 within class. Well done, Joel. And then we can see Matthew Dalton, Gerda Van Slovas, Richard Pineda, Henry Hummel, Lance Corley. Welcome return to Lance. Stephen Chen, Omar Balkasoon out of position. Steve Blevitt, Ben Gudenzi ahead of Brad Evans, Dan Magnuszewski, Louis Peruskia, Bernard Gomez, Joe Sposado, Enoch Hurd, Jeffrey Keel, and no times from Matthias Perez Compact and also Bruce Cleveland, who I was waxing lyrical about earlier on. He's driving in both the 488 and 296. You can barely see the W of the corkscrew, Tony, because of the mist. Yeah, drivers did really well. Like in Austin, we saw good action on track with the difficult conditions. Credits to Massimo Perina and his team Ferrari of Seattle. They really played well this 20-minute session, and obviously for Cher, we have straight away the question: what happened on the last lap? What made it possible for Massimo Perina? Did he have slicks on him, or was it just the tire pressures? Because last lap he improved by 1.6 seconds, the P1 time, so that was well played qualifying session. The information we are being given, Tony, you're spot on. You've got it right. He went out on slicks. It's a big gamble, isn't it? Because it is a gamble, and it can also put your weekend in a difficult position, because if you have an off with the cold slick tires in these conditions, but it was really well played with the team,
and also the confidence from the driver to make the call, because you need to do it a few minutes earlier, because if you do it last moment, it won't work. So you need to go out a few laps earlier, get the temperature and everything.
Is it a feeling you get as a driver, Tony, when you know that the track is on the cusp of change? You know instinctively, do you know what? I think I could get away with this.
Yeah, because if the wet tires are not working anymore properly, and then the lap time is just seized there. You cannot go, let's say, 10 seconds to 12 seconds closer to the dry track lap time. So then you are forced to improvise, try something else, and say, hey, I'm P2 or P3. If I pit now 5-6 minutes towards the end, put in the slick tires, and this is the result what happened there. And we saw excellent execution from Ferrari of Seattle and Massimo Perino.
Yes, great job done. As our next qualifying session will get underway shortly, and that will be, of course, in the 296 cars. Now, based on what has happened in the qualifying session previous to this one, where we've seen some bold and ambitious drivers go out there on the slick tyres towards the end of the session, what's your gut feeling with regards to the drivers of the 296s? Are they going to have a go straight away, or?
Yeah, the right call now would be to go out on slicks,
right.
Try to gather the information from the previous session. What did the fastest drivers do?
Yep.
And go with that. But also here the level of experience. And again, you want to have a solid weekend. You can send your driver out with wet tires, do few laps to see how is the track, change the tires, and then go out with the slicks, because around 10 to 12 minutes, that's enough for the slick tires.
Okay, it's another short, sharp session for our mix of Pirelli and Pirelli Am drivers then driving the wonderful Ferrari Challenge 296 car, introduced this year, of course. I think one of the big benefits I got as we watched John Horsch then, this is an amazing corner, and it's where we were yesterday, and I have to say, to actually be up there, my senses were in overload as you hear these wonderful cars accelerate away from there, and the car not only looks a beauty, it sounds beautiful as well. It's a proper thoroughbred racing car, and as we mentioned, certainly in our first program when we were in Texas, you know, the drivers are jumping out of these cars, whether it's been from a free practice session, a qualifying session, or a race indeed, and beaming from ear to ear, because the car is a joy to drive, it's a joy to listen to, and it's a joy for us to watch.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a little bit old school. I'm not a great ambassador, great fan of track walk, so actually I never walked this track before. I've driven it in many occasions, and yesterday was the first time that I was outside the corkscrew, and to see the elevation, I was impressed. I've done 1,000 laps, but I never saw the corner outside a racing car. And yes, what comes to this 296 challenge car, the feeling of the drivers in Austin, but also the rhythm, how the racing was on wet and on dry conditions was beautiful to see, and the drivers looked really confident out there with this really powerful race car. And I must say, Ferrari, with the development of this 296 challenge car, have done a great job.
Indeed so, and well, pole sitters have done a great job in the previous session, and Shea is catching up with them already. Down to you, Shea.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, finally found our pole sitter, Massimo Perino. Perfect start to the season so far. You now have 3 of these beautiful pole awards. How difficult was it to earn, though, today in these mixed conditions?
It's very tricky because the conditions not only were very intermediate and we don't have that kind of tire selection available, but the traffic was really bad. So trying to manage that and find ourselves a gap was the key to getting a pole position today.
You came in for a tire pressure adjustment. What difference did that make when you were able to go back out and find another 2 seconds?
It made a big difference because the tires were heating up so quick in these dry conditions that we weren't able to get the time out of it that we needed. So we came in, bled down, and that's what helped us get to where we needed to be.
What are you going to do with all the time before the race now?
Probably take a nap. I mean, I got nothing else to do. We got 6 hours, something like that? Yeah, plenty of time.
Congrats on your first trophy of the day. Good luck getting another one later.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well done, Massimo. Interestingly, he said exactly what you and I said, which proves that just sometimes Mr. Verlander, all the time, occasionally Mr. Richardson alongside him, we do know what we're talking about sometimes.
Yeah,
Always.
If you say things 1,000 times, for sure once you will get things right. So
Thanks, Tony.
let's not. Let's try to bring our average up. So
Okay. Well, averages as here we can see Matías Perez compact then in the number 50 car out there on track. Benoit Bergeron is fastest at the moment with a 1:29.482. Dylan Medler has just gone quickest for the Pirelli drivers. So the Ferrari of Central Florida car heading now towards turn number 1 here at Laguna Seca. Remind you that this really rather old school circuit contains some 11 turns, 7 of them left and 4 of them are right-handers, and difficult to accomplish absolute perfection around this track, much of which is what Tony has said. It's a very old school circuit which will bite you hard if you lose your concentration just for a moment. Now, we continue the quest with the Perina family and their success, and Roberto Perina, who is out there right now driving the 296 in Ferrari Challenge, is currently fastest within class for Trofeo Pirelli, second fastest overall, as you can see from the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen. I remind you that the numbers that are coloured in white, the position numbers, and the numbers that are coloured in red delineates which particular category each driver is racing in. So if it's white, it's a Pirelli AM driver. If it's red, it's a Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli driver. And Roberto Perina is indeed a Pirelli driver for Ferrari of Seattle. Paying homage to the colours of the hypercar is the number 15 car driven by Dylan Medler, who of course opened the season in fine style, Tony, by taking the win in the first North America race in the 296 Challenge. Didn't do quite so well in the second race where it was a P8, so he'll be hoping to get back onto the sharp end of the podium, if you will, this weekend.
yeah, he had a great performance in race 1 and then a tricky conditions in race 2, and he was, I believe, was caught with the contact in turn 11 in Austin, that tight hairpin before the back straight. But that shows that these mixed conditions, they also mix up the grid. If you don't have such a good qualifying and you are between places 5 to 10, it's a lot more trickier than being in the lead of the race. So I think it was a good lesson also for him to always try to get the most out of it in qualifying, and that helps you to get a good run also in the race.
Fair point. They're the number 87 car, which is driven by Jeremy Clark. Now, Jeremy Clark returning to the Ferrari Challenge this weekend, Tony. He wasn't at COTA, and I followed Jeremy in his racing for many, many years across North America, and also when he's raced in the Winter Challenge in the Middle East, as he did a couple of years ago. And Jeremy Clark is always one of those drivers that you could ill afford to bet against. A very, very talented driver. It'll be very interesting to see where he positions the car during qualifying. We're watching that number 87 car doing a pretty good job at the moment, because the Ferrari Beverly Hills driver is second fastest in class. That's third fastest overall at the moment. So Jeremy Clark then is certainly on something of a mission. We can just begin to see on the tarmac here where that line is now. So
yeah, that is true. A dry line is shaping up, and based on the lap times, I believe all the drivers out there are with the slick tires. Leading driver right now in timing and scoring, Matías Kompák, a really fast young driver who is having his second weekend with the Ferrari Challenge, and we saw great pace from Matías, but some improvement still needed on the racecraft. A little bit more aggressive at the race starts and to defend his position in the opening laps, but this comes only through experience, and these Ferrari Challenge weekends and races are the best place to improve those skills that by being alone on track, just testing, you don't improve. You need to come to the races, have those race starts to see other cars around you, and then defend your own position. And Matías is improving, and for sure during the season is the driver to follow.
Well, Brian Cook is certainly a driver to follow, because he opened his account for 2024 in fine style, you will recall, just a couple of weeks ago by taking 2 wins in Pirelli AM. And Brian must come here with confidence bubbling over, I would have suggested, when you've done as well as you have. And what does that do to you as a racing driver, Tony, if you've had a really, really good weekend where you've maximised your results? that must almost be worth a 100th or a 10th coming into the next race weekend, or am I talking utter rubbish?
No, it's a big boost. Those shoulders keep a little bit higher, you know. When you have a brand new car and you do the testing, you don't know where you're at. You don't know how is the performance. And when you open the season in a very strong way, that carries throughout the whole season. Even in different conditions and different racetracks, you know that the foundation of the speed is there. So the season opening has a great value.
The number 29 car is driven by Sebastian Mascaro, who took a podium in race 1 in Kota. And I just want to say, Tony, that Sebastian came up to me yesterday and said, do you know what, I loved watching the replays of the races and watching the highlights program and listening to you guys. You really made me feel good, and that's really nice to hear from a racing driver. It was followed by a queue of people saying, don't like you. No, it wasn't, but you know, it's you know, the camaraderie, the atmosphere, the ambience within the paddock, within the driver base of Ferrari Challenge is awesome, and you know, we love being able to talk about it. And you know, you build up an affinity with these drivers, and you feel the emotions that they're going through. And Jason McCarthy, here he is in the number 11 car. He was out just a few moments ago in the 488, and he was right at the sharp end of the qualifying session. Where is he now? He's more than at the sharp end. He's the quickest Pirelli driver out there in the number 11 car. So McCarthy getting double seat time in and taking advantage of everything that he's taking on board from this Laguna Seca circuit as John Bennett crosses the timing line, or is about to. Is this going to be an improvement from John? P8 in class as he crosses the timing line now. Indeed, he goes up a place. Took very nearly 2/10 out of his previous best time. So well done to John Bennett. As we see the car of Roberto Perina come into the pit lane now. The all-yellow car that you can see there, Benoit Bergeron, who was right at the top of the chart in the very early stages of this qualifying, and we're looking now at Michael Mathis. And, Michael with a P11 and a P8 from the first showing in Texas. He is fourth fastest within Trofeo Pirelli Am. That's a very creditable performance from Michael Mathis. Well done. Loving the white stripe at the back of the car, which kind of goes from the bottom to the top at an angle. Is almost reminds me of a TV series of Starsky and Hutch, where they used to have that little. I bet you had that on your car, didn't you, Tony?
Yeah, but this is not a general league.
Oh, I appreciate that. Oh, around has gone the number 46 car. Well done, got into safety as well. Martin Burrows then, and that just again. If we were lulled into a false sense of security of how the track was, you know, it can still hurt. Let's take a look. Martin Burrows then.
Yeah, he's a little bit offline in Cavatappi, so corkscrew, and the grip is not there. The racing line is not dry as where he was the previous lap, and then that's why just turning into the corner, the rear of the car came over a bit, and he couldn't correct it. But luckily, no real consequences, and he was able to continue. So that's a very good thing.
Martin Burrows, who was on the podium in the second race in our opening round, as we look at John Horsch now in the number 67 car, the all-black Ferrari of Vancouver car. And John Horsch then can never bet against him being right at the sharp end of qualifying, but not going to be on this lap as he brings the car into the pit lane. So let's bring you up to speed as to who is where. For our Pirelli Am drivers, it's Compang from Benoit Bergeron, from Brian Cook then, the 1, 2, 3. For the Pirelli drivers, Jason McCarthy, Jeremy Clark and Dylan Medler. They are the top 3 in Pirelli at the moment, and we've got just under 7 minutes of this remaining as Jeremy Clark brings the car into the pit lane now. And also out there you can see the Dylan Medler car, and just the back end of the car looking a bit twitchy there, Tony. So you're absolutely on the limit, aren't you?
Yeah, also a tire pressure thing with these not completely dry conditions. You probably are tempted to start the session with a little bit higher tire pressure, so that little sideways movement comes from the tire that is struggling with the grip, maybe a little bit overheated tire surface. So these things you need to control, and one of those areas on track is after the corkscrew, when you go downhill from 8 through 9 and 10 towards the end of the lap. You really need to control the car. It's downhill, it's a little bit it's not completely flat, the track over there, so you feel the car moving a lot. Initially a little bit of understeer, then the car grips, and it became a little bit oversteery in the exit of the corners. And now we see here again, he's a little bit struggling with the grip on the Pirelli tires.
And presumably the rate of increase in tyre pressure during the course of a lap is different due to the ambient conditions as well, because tyre pressures do increase, don't they, Tony, when you are running the car. So do you, in combination with your team, do you decide what you're going to do, whether your optimal tyre pressure, you bring it down a PSI because you know it's going to increase or whatever? I mean, it's quite a careful calculation, isn't it?
It is, and also there the team's experience, but together with the confidence of the driver, do we really need to raise the tire pressures? Because when the tire is ready, then the pressure is already too high if the initial pressure was increased. So a little bit lower pressure, and it requires maybe 1 or 2 more laps to warm up everything, but when the tire is ready to perform, then the pressure is in the right window.
Optimum.
So it's always that's one of the key elements to really nail those lap times and to fight for pole position in any form of motorsport. So tire pressures are one of the key elements.
Thank you, Tony Verlander, with his expert view throughout our broadcasts across the course of this weekend and every Ferrari Challenge weekend, as we watch Tony Davis right now. And Tony then, who I spoke to very briefly yesterday, he'll be hoping to improve from his current P5 place within class, and is Tony on the trajectory to do that? We're running the clock on him as he makes his way through this corkscrew, which really is a utter roller coaster. And if you want to come and visit us in the Ferrari Challenge here in North America, this place is one that should be on your bucket list, because it is an absolutely extraordinary circuit in really rather beautiful surroundings as well, although be forgiven for thinking that of today's weather, but generally speaking it's always lovely here. And Tony Davis then, is this going to be an improvement for him? P5, well, no, he's down quite a bit in comparison to where he would like to be, so perhaps that was just an outlet from him and more to come from him as we look at the number 29 car of Sebastian Mascaro. So Sebastian Mascaro, where is he sitting with regards to our timing at the moment? Well, he'd like to be further up the order than he is. He's currently P10 in Trofeo Pirelli Am. His best lap of 1:32.957. He's got some time to find when you consider that Compact's best time, and his car incidentally is parked in the pit lane, is a 1:27.784. So big margins between some of the drivers, certainly from top to bottom. Here is Martin Burrows then, who had a sideways moment going through the corkscrew just a few moments ago, and he's hoping to improve on his P9 within class. Martin Burrows then, with still time to find. Martin Burrows is really, really entertaining driver who goes, that's a very, very considerate way of just not bulking anyone that's behind you. You could see someone was approaching on a faster lap, he got right out of the way.
Yeah, very nice move from Barros. He let Matthias Perez Compact by and not disturbing their lap time. So very nice gentleman move. We don't always see these kind of moves during qualifying. So that was really well played from Barros.
So Matthias Perez Compact then taking advantage of Martin Burrows' good nature, and he will be trying to improve. Now, we haven't seen much of the beautiful number 30 car of Dave Musial, but we do right now. The Ferrari of Lake Forest driver, who of course races in the Ferrari Challenge along with Dave Musial 2.0, and he's currently 6th fastest for Ferrari of Lake Forest. So within class that would be a 3rd row start. I remind you that as we reach the sharp end of this qualifying session, Matthias Compact then, right at the top of the chart. As a Pirelli Am driver, he's bested our Pirelli drivers that are out there. And there is the number 38 car of Michael Petramalo. Somebody else I was talking to just yesterday, and quite some fun with Michael Petramalo as headed towards a big picture that was taking place out there on track, and currently 8th fastest within our Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli drivers, driving for Ferrari of Seattle. Is this going to be an improvement? Heading towards breaking the timing beam now. And Michael Petramalo does break the beam. And he's got 5.5 tenths to find on a lap. And he is probably on the last lap. In fact, he's definitely on the last lap that he can do, because the clock is counted down to 50 seconds remaining. So it's all eyes on who's doing what in the closing stages of this. Benoit Bergeron, who, if I may say so, didn't exit the corner quite as he would have liked to, and that has probably Horlick's that lap for him. And he was right at the top of the chart at the beginning of the session, but Benoit Bergeron for Ferrari of Quebec, he's still third fastest within our AM drivers, so certainly a very steadfast effort there, but I just rather think that perhaps carried a little bit too much speed into that final turn, and that really did for his final lap in this qualifying session.
Yeah, that is true. Turn 11, last corner, he missed the apex of the corner. Again, it's more wet outside the racing line, so he backed off in the end of that lap, and also we see him going slowly. He knows the session is over, so this is the performance we saw from him, P3 in Pro-Am.
Yes, so well done, Benoit. Here, then, as we're looking for improvements throughout the pack, is Jason McCarthy. Now, Jason McCarthy is quickest in Pirelli drivers, and he'll be satisfied with that, and I don't think he's going to chase. No, he isn't. He's coming into the pit lane. There would be no point chasing to try and bring Matthias out of that overall P1 position, but McCarthy has done enough within class ahead of Jeremy Clark and Roberto Perena. So that's pretty much the order. I can't see anyone out there that's on a monumental lap at the moment, so here we can see the having slowed down Benoit Bergeron, the Ferrari of Quebec driver. Just cruising the car back to the pit lane. So the pole positions for each category is going to be Matthias Compact then for Pirelli AM. It's going to be Jason McCarthy for Wide World Ferrari and Pirelli drivers. That's the way it looks from that short, sharp qualifying session from Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli. A brilliant mix of drivers, and great to see them out there enjoying the Laguna Seca. I was just looking out the window of our really rather luxurious commentary studio. I can't see this low cloud, sort of misty. It's not lifting very much. I mean, it's still early in the morning here, isn't it? What have we got? 9:16 local time. Hopefully, when it comes to race time for these drivers, as we heard from Massimo Perena, he was saying early on, they've got a big gap now between their qualifying and their race. So there, as a backdrop, you can see how murky it is. And here is the classification. Matthias Perez Compact quickest from Jason McCarthy, Jeremy Clark, Roberto Perena. Then it was Dylan Medler, Joe Rubo, Brian Cook, and Dave Musial 2.0, David Musial Jr., ahead of John Bennett, Benoit Bergeron, Michael Petramalo, Michael Mathis, Tony Davis, David Musial Sr., Martin Burrows then, occupying the next page of our timing screen, with Jay Logan, Frank Cheng. Then it was John Horsch, Sebastian Mascaro, and no time posted from Brian Kaminsky, which means it will be a back-of-the-grid start for Brian Kaminsky come the race a little bit later on. So from Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli drivers, we say thank you very much for your performance out there on track and keeping us entertained. And our final qualifying session, this early morning qualifying session, is about to get underway, and that will be for the Shell drivers. The reason that the schedule is shaken about a bit, Tony, is because, of course, this weekend here in Laguna Seca is one of the famed Ferrari racing days. It's more than just a race weekend, it is a racing days event, and racing days means that we get to see some really rather evocative machinery out there on track, in addition to the challenge cars.
Yeah, that is true. We have a great Ferrari action-packed weekend. We have the FX6 program cars on track. We have a Formula One car on track, and we have 499P Modificata, a car that is got its inspiration from the Le Mans winning 499P car. Those are really beautiful cars to see on track. And also we have the Club GT action, where you can see a 488 Modificata with over 700 horsepower, but you can also spot some GT cars that I might have driven in the past. Not in the 70s, but
Come on, yes.
a little bit more lately, and that is a great way to see also the GT cars on track. So a lot of action, and that's why the day starts quite early in the morning.
And it's really nice that these cars, which have delivered so much success for Ferrari, are still pummeled around a track in anger. by owners that really, really love these cars and can extract the magnificent performance from them. It's great for us to be able to enjoy those cars out there on track, and it's a rare opportunity, isn't it, for race fans to experience these?
Yeah, that is true. It's great to see those cars on track from 360, 430, 458. To see those cars still on track, the sound of different era.
I know.
Aspirated engine, turbo engines. I also wish that I had invested a little bit on the cars that I've driven in the past, because nowadays the value is 10 times more, but it is what it is, and it's great to see those cars on track. And occasionally I get to drive. Last year I drove my 430 from the past, even at Le Mans at the historic weekend, and that was a great feeling. I'm not saying I had tears in my eyes,
but
I
you
was
were
close.
emotional.
Well,
you were emotional.
I was emotional. From the Finland scale, I was emotional.
It's interesting that you mentioned the 430. I mean, my relationship with Ferrari now is in its 15th year. How have I not been found out yet? And so for me, in the Ferrari Challenge, it was the year that the 430 and the 458 were crossing over, if you like. And so it's interesting that you mentioned the 430, because that still remains, perhaps because of the history, it remains one of my favourites, I have to be honest. But let's get to the here and now, and this is Copa Shell. And drivers out there to qualify. They've once again got a very short 20-minute session. And if I may say, I think these Shell drivers are going to probably experience the track at its best now, because they've had all the running from the previous two categories that have been out there. So some rubber has gone down, and therefore the track will have probably evolved to be the best it's going to be in these early morning qualifying sessions. So these guys are going to get the benefit of that.
Yeah, that is true. And also many of the teams run drivers and cars in different categories, so the teams have already a good knowledge for tire pressures, get information to these drivers. So like you said, this third qualifying session will have the best track condition for this morning qualifying triple.
I was having a laugh with Steve Check yesterday for Ferrari of Rancho Mirage, like many of our Ferrari Challenge drivers who seem to have a smile permanently etched across their face. And why wouldn't you when you're part of a Ferrari Challenge driver base and part of the whole experience? And Steve Check driving the 124 car, who of course will again come here. Oh, there's a couple of cars that have gone off already. One of those is Jerry Walters. I was going to say Steve comes here again, another driver that will be feeling good about his performance, having taken a win in Circuit of the Americas. Let's take a look at this replay. What happened here, Tony? Cold tyres, I suggest.
Yeah.
Well,
luckily there was no contact. First we saw the pink car just in acceleration, the rear came over a bit, and then another car.
It was Jan Bernier in avoidance, wasn't he? You know,
a little bit of avoidance, and say like, "Hey, did you see this guy spinning?" And then here we go.
Well, Jerry's got it pointing in the right direction again now, and I'm sure Jan Bernier will do the same. Indeed, so you can see the car out there on track through the gloom which envelops the Laguna Seca Raceway this morning. So. Drivers don't have long to get the cars up to speed and get themselves up to speed and get out there. And, of course, we would like to find out how somebody is feeling about setting pole position in the previous session. And Shea Adam, working really, really hard in the pit lane, has our pole sitter for us.
For the first time, overall pole position, Matthias Perez-Compang. How happy are you to get this done? Ferrari Racing Days in front of such a crowd.
Yeah, no, very happy. Just didn't expect to qualify on rain tires, but we could get in the first lap, so very happy with that, and let's keep it to the race.
You've been working with Oz Negri, a guy who knows how to win here. He's done it before. What has he told you about the race as opposed to qualifying?
No, just keep calm on the qualifying, on the race too, but he's the genius behind this, so very happy, and all thanks to him.
Congratulations. First one of these. I think you'll have a few more by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Well done, Shea, and well done to young Mr. Compang there, as same place, I think that is, Tony, isn't it? And we see the stricken car of Cyril Choksi. and with damage to it.
Yeah, I think there's been a contact.
And
It's maybe with another driver, because it looks like on the front right corner. No, not with the other driver.
oh, what a shame for Cyril Choksi then.
There was a contact with
There
another
was. You were
other
right.
car.
You were right, Tony.
Looks like it's very slippery on that.
That's not what we expected, and it was
Yeah.
John Viscup. And you can see the damage to the back end of John Viscup car. Completely unintentional. And we've got a red flag. Now, that means that this session has been suspended then. So, John Viscup, and it just proves how treacherous this track can still be.
Yeah, and we were still in the phase of building up those tire temperatures and getting confidence with the racetrack. So we saw a few drivers, a bit strange, 3 drivers, 3 cars spinning in the same corner. So not sure if there was something on the track, because one driver spinning, it's understandable, but 3 and also at the same time,
Yeah.
a couple of drivers, so, or let's say 4 drivers even we had spinning there. So
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Maybe something related to the track as well.
Yeah, Jan Bernier we saw in avoidance initially, and he lost the back end of the car. Jerry Walters. Now we've seen Cyril Choksi, and yeah, we will see. Well, the session has been suspended with the red flag, and the clock has been stopped. So I don't think it's going to be the too long a delay before we get the session back on again. But the cars will line up ready to go again as soon as the track has been made safe. Presumably the Cyril Choksi car may need recovering. We will see. We can see the other car sort of working its way back, the John Viscup car, back to the pit lane. The teams are going to have some work to do on those cars, that's for sure. So that's a real, two very, very good drivers. John Viscup was on the podium in the second race, of course, at COTA, and Cyril Choksi, well, he had a P2 and a P1. So 2 very front-running drivers caught out potentially in the early stages of this qualifying, the consequences of which could be that they're in a compromised position when it comes to the race for their grid position.
Yeah, that is true. The 2 cars we saw with the contact, the first one with the barrier, and then the other car arriving, those cars definitely need some heavy repairs. So hopefully, let's hope they can be on the grid for the first round of the races today. And unfortunately, to see this happen, we were doing so well.
Yeah.
We did the first 2 sessions with no major issues, some offs, some visiting the gravel trap, but still rejoining the track. But now in this third qualifying, we saw some contacts.
Right, let's go down into the pit lane then and get the viewpoint from Shay Adam, who will have been ferreting away for information, I don't doubt, Shay.
Well, a little bit of warmth coming down here by hanging out by the Brembos, but the more important thing, if you look at the Pirellis, you'll get the answer as to why it was so treacherous at the start of that session. These are slick tires, guys. They have finally sent Copa Shell out on slick Pirellis. So the other 2 categories, they were qualifying on the wets. These ones, no grooves in them. It's going to be a lot harder to try and not only get heat into them, but dissipate any form of liquid that still exists on the track.
Shay, thank you so much. That's really, really important information, because that really adds to the story of what we've seen so far. So there we are. Just moments of pause for the drivers then, as the cars are recovered, and then we'll get this session back underway again. So most of the drivers going out on those slick tyres, which means it's very, very gently until you've got some temperature into those tyres before you can really put the pedal down and go for your qualifying. As we're on board with Steve Check. It's a brilliant vantage point, this onboard shot. You can see the screen in the middle of the dashboard there. That's because these 296 cars do not have a rear view mirror inside the car. They have a screen. The cameras at the back of the car project the image onto the screen, because where a rear view mirror would sit, it would be blocked by a safety bulkhead that is behind the driver here. And Steve's just turned the screen off, helpfully. But it's the drivers much prefer having the screen rather than a rearview mirror. Apparently, the view that they can get from that is much more immersive, and it gives them much more a wider view of what's behind them. So there, we could see that from being on board with the Steve Check car. So frustratingly for the drivers, they're having to sit there until we get the okay and we can get the session back underway. Now, the clock is continuing to count down. I suspect the clock will be reset. Now, whether we'll get the entire duration of the qualifying session to run, only time will tell. And this, the John Viscup car, and you can just see the damage to the back of the John Viscup car then when he made contact with Cyril Choksi. It was completely innocuous. It was just one of those things. Both cars, we had in total 4 cars spinning in the same place, and Shea has really explained why that is now, and it is because the drivers in this particular session have chosen to go out on, or most of the drivers we think have chosen to go out on the slick tyres, which means that grip is certainly more difficult to come by for them. So we await news, and while we await news, someone that always brings us something is Shea Adam, who's working really hard early on down there in the pit lane.
I am pleased, Dave. Yes, we do now have the John Viscup car back behind the wall, so that car will not be continuing when we do get back to a green flag. Expecting green flag pretty soon here. Looks like cars have started lining up at the pit exit, so that's a good news. But while we've got this little bit of downtime, let's get to know this racetrack a little bit better. 2.238 miles, 11 turns, and Dylan Medler, birthday boy earlier this week, was kind enough to take us for a lap.
Hi guys, I'm Dylan Medler, driver number 15 of the collection Ferrari 296 Challenge car, and I'm going to take you on a lap around Laguna Seca. So here we are on the front straight of Laguna Seca. We're hitting 6th gear here, so we're going to line up on the right-hand side of the track to get a good brake marker and hit the double apex into turn 2.
Oh, sorry. I'm on the air, forgive me.
We're going to be looking ahead, get the throttle, and now line up for turn 3 on the left-hand side, hit the brakes. Going to hit the apex, try to get a good exit here. So now we're going to turn 4, which is a pretty fast corner, pretty tricky. You got to hit it right. And now we're on the straight back to turn 5. So you look at the bridge now, and our brake marker is past the bridge. Go down 1 gear and feel the compression here, and use all the track on the exit, even though it falls away. You got to hit it perfectly. And now for turn 6, you look at the bridge, brake right after that. Turn 6 is a lot of compression, as you can see. You can carry a lot of speed through there. So now we're lining up for one of my favorite corners, the corkscrew. Use all the curbing to get a straight line braking. And here we go, down to 2nd gear. Here you feel your stomach drop, you go down and then on again. So now turn 9, it's a pretty interesting corner. It's a sweeper, so you're feathering the throttle the entire time. And now we're lining up turn 10, which is pretty similar. Carry as much speed as possible. So then now you're lining up for turn 11. You want to get a good exit for the straight. Here you are, use all the track on the exit, and then you're going up the gears all the way up to 6th gear. And that is a lap around Laguna Seca.
Cheers, Dylan. Really appreciate that. And we go green once again. And amazingly, I said that all these qualifying sessions are short and sharp. This one is certainly that, because at the moment the clock has not been reset, and therefore the drivers have got just 7.5 minutes to set their time for qualifying. Bruce Cleveland, we can see there, climbing up the hill now and heading towards the, as Dylan described it, you feel his stomach lurch through the corkscrew. And he's heading on his way there right now as you climb uphill. It's a complete uphill section through that turn and this one. Before you reach that remarkable piece of track here at Laguna Seca. So, beautiful livery across the Bruce Cleveland car. Speaking of Bruce, yesterday, accelerate, and then, as Tony has said, it's such a flowing track that you keep on it all the time. So the car's just tentatively trying to build some temperature into the tyres to get going once again. And it is going to be a real fight to the checkered flag in this session, my goodness me. So we have a mix of Shell drivers. They have the yellow strip across the top of the windscreen. That's how you can identify a Shell driver. A Shell AM driver has a black strip across the top of the windscreen. That's how they look. And into turn number 1, then they go. We're looking at Jeffrey Numberg, the Ferrari of Central New Jersey driver. He drives car number 141, where He was on the podium in the first race of the 296 era in North America at COTA, where he took a P3. He'll be hoping to replicate podium successes this weekend here in California as well. These cars look absolutely resplendent. And the Steve Check car that we were looking at for Ferrari of Rancho Mirage. Let's go on board with Steve Check, who's turned his screen back on again now for our benefit. And just tentatively building speed and building temperature into everything as Steve Check climbs uphill right now. Great shot this is. Dab of the brakes then, just kissing the curb and continuing this uphill trajectory towards the real cliff drop that is about to follow. So Steve Check looking good here, down to fourth gear, now down to third. You can see the gears on the left-hand side, and then you turn in here, and getting the optimum line through here, of course, becomes more difficult in the race when you've got cars either side of you potentially. Jan Bernier has gone quickest so far for Ferrari of Seattle with a 1:36.470. We'll bring the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen when more meaningful times are posted by our drivers. Eric Marston has just gone second fastest for our Shell drivers with a 1:37.123. So then it is Waltersdorf and Dana Goodwin with under 5 minutes of the session remaining. We're live from Laguna Seca here in California. Ferrari Challenge, and this is Copa Shell qualifying. And there the 126 car of Eric Marston I was talking about just a few moments ago, Ferrari of Westlake driver, who is second fastest at the moment with a 1:37.123. Eric also on the podium in his first race in the 296 era at the Circuit of the Americas, where he took P2. Climbs uphill, and here you can see drivers trying to find the space they need. Roger Monteforte tried just a little bit too hard, carried a little bit too much speed, and Roger Monteforte will go again. Chuck Whittle has just gone quickest of anyone, and well, cancel that out now because Jan Bernier has just returned the favour, and Jan Bernier has taken a big 2.6 seconds out of the previous best time. So time's going to come tumbling really, really quickly because we have only 3.5 minutes of this session remaining. The 111 car of Brian Waltersdorf doing a very good job at the moment. He is quickest for our Shell Am drivers, ahead of Dana Goodwin, who is P2. The 123 car, which is totally beautiful, of Robert McWilliams, currently running P6 in class, P9 overall. This is potentially going to be an improvement for Robert McWilliams. It's an improvement, but just by one place, up to P5 now for our Shell drivers. All being led by Eric Marston, who's popped in a 1:33.92, so a full 2.8 seconds quicker than anybody else as the track has evolved sufficiently to really come to our drivers now. And Chuck Whittle then has been relegated to P4 in class, P6 overall, and when you consider he was quickest of everyone for just a few moments, he goes up a further place, now makes it P3 in class, that's P4 overall. So the 132, the familiar colours then of Jan Bernier, who is second fastest, and he's having a real ding-dong with Eric Marston for top honours in Shell drivers. Well, he's got to within 0.3 of Eric Marston's time, but both of those have been usurped, if you will, by Mitchell Green, who has gone quickest of anyone with a 1:33.63, some 2/100ths quicker than Eric Marston was just a few moments ago. Robert McWilliams continuing then. Seventh fastest, running the clock on the car. You can see on the graphics at the bottom of your screen. It's Marston from Green, from Bernier, from Waltersdorf, from Gaio, from Vettel and Goodwin and Monteforte. They are the top 8 drivers currently. Marston now ahead of Mitchell Green. All in the 130s. I wonder if we are going to see a time into the 29s and who is going to post that. We've got a minute and a bit left in this qualifying session. Finding track space is critical, and that's critical certainly for the driver of the 121 car, stuck right in the middle of that, Roy Carroll. Mitchell Green then second fastest, Jan Bernier third fastest. Brian Waltersdorf then best of the Shell Am drivers. Marston best of the Shell drivers currently. The Shell drivers with the yellow strip across the top of the windscreen, and the Am drivers with the black strip across the top of the windscreen, as Osvaldo Gallo goes to second fastest, and Roger Monteforte goes to the top of the chart for our Shell Am drivers with a 1:30.846. Just 30 seconds remaining. And, Roger Monteforte's time at the top of the Shell Am drivers has just been closed as Brian Waltersdorf goes quickest. Here's Dana Goodwin, currently third fastest within our Shell Am drivers. Marston, Gallo, Green, the top three. Make that Marston, Robert McWilliams, Osvaldo Gallo now, as the checkered flag does come out on this session, but any driver that is on a lap, that lap can still count and will still count. There is Lisa Clark then, who is currently seventh fastest within Shell. Fastest in the session overall. So any driver that crossed the line before the flag came out means that they can continue on their hot lap. 195 cars driven by Paul Lynn for Ferrari of Newport Beach. And Paul Lynn then crosses the timing line now and improves a good number of places from P11 to P6 in class. Good driving right at the end of the session from Paul Lynn. And Robert McWilliams goes third fastest for our Shell drivers. Here comes Eric Marston then. This will be his final lap. Has he improved on his 1:26.070? Well, the answer is no, but he still remains the quickest of the Shell drivers from that previous lap. So it's Marston from Gallo from McWilliams, and proving how the track has really evolved. I was saying at one point, are we going to see times into the 129s? We're seeing times in 126s. There's only two drivers that have put it into the 26s. That's Eric Marston and Robert McWilliams. For the Am drivers, it's Roger Monteforte from Brian Waltersdorf and Dana Goodwin. They are the top three for our Shell Am drivers. So qualifying sessions are completed then for our Ferrari Challenge Copa Shell group of drivers. Now, they have quite some wait before they will be out for racing action a little bit later on today, when hopefully the weather conditions will have improved. We can see the track is bone dry now, and it does dry out really rather quickly, and that has been to the benefit of our Shell drivers. And here is confirmation of their classification. Eric Marston, the quickest from Robert McWilliams, Osvaldo Gallo, Jan Bernier, Roger Monteforte, quickest of the Am drivers, ahead of Mitchell Green, Brian Waltersdorf and Dana Goodwin. They are going to be on the first 4 rows of the grid. Then we see Jerry Walters, Chuck Whittle, David Williams, Lisa Clark, Paul Lynn, Helen Chu, and then Al Hegyi. Good qualifying from Al, well done. Ahead of Roy Carroll, Steve Check, Jeffrey Nunberg. No times posted by Bruce Cleveland, Cyril Choksi and John Visca. We did see Bruce Cleveland out there, but he didn't post a meaningful time in that qualifying session, so going to be out of position when it comes to qualifying, as indeed are Cyril Choksi as well. So there we have it then, that session completed, and our short sharp qualifyings from Ferrari Challenge North America are done to set the grids for the races to come. This afternoon you can see the paddock area to the left hand side of your screen, and the double-decker hospitality unit inside the paddock for all our guests and drivers and their families and such like. A very pleasant experience here in the paddock, and well, the podium is also down there to the very left-hand side of your screen as well, and that is, of course, what every driver will be targeting and aiming for, is a position on that podium when it comes to race time. So our mix of Shell and Shell Am drivers then, with their qualifying completed. And the all-red car of the Ferrari of Westlake driver, Eric Marston then. Had lunch with Eric yesterday, and he'll be very pleased with his performance. That puts him into a good position for the race, obviously. starting from P1, and there we can once again see on board with the Steve Chet car what it's like inside the wonderful Ferrari 296 Challenge car, making its way into the paddock now. The car will be parked up. Steve will have been hoping for probably better in qualifying, but the qualifying session, short and sharp as it was anyway, of course made ever shorter by cars going awry during the course of that qualifying. So Eric Marston, Robert McWilliams, Osvaldo Gallo, then the top three for the Shell drivers. For the AM drivers, Roger Monteforte, Brian Waltersdorf and Dana Goodwin. They are the top three for our AM drivers. What a sight that is to behold. Really rather lovely here at Laguna Seca. Although the weather conditions has thrown something of a curved ball in for our drivers in their short qualifying sessions today, and they of course will be out there later on in their proper racing environment. In the meantime, you can see some of the wonderful XX Programs cars lining up for their first showing of the day as well, all part of Ferrari Racing Days here in Laguna Seca. That will be the next session on track, and of course all the running on track is just going to help evolve the track conditions for the drivers when it comes to their races. Three great races to bring you this afternoon from the Shell drivers, from the Traffier Pirelli drivers, and of course from the mix of Pirelli and Shell drivers in the 488 Challenge as well. Great shot down there in the paddock as the cars are taken back to their temporary engineering bases that are created at every event that we go to in the Ferrari Challenge, and we're here for our second round in California. From here, of course, we go to support Formula One in Montreal in Canada, then it's Watkins Glen, then it is the Sonoma Raceway as we come back to California, then Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and then the grand finals, the finale mondiale, is in Imola in Italy, sort of middle of October, which is weather conditions that we would expect in the middle of October is what we're experiencing right now, to be honest with you. So some of the XX Programs cars are getting out there already. So the XX Program's the next out there. As I mentioned on track, the wonderful laboratory cars from Ferrari that we will be looking forward to seeing out there on track, and the noise that they make around the around this circuit. A nice little pan there of the paddock appearing on our left-hand side, and there you can see one of the FXXK cars going through the corkscrew. A joy to behold, that's for sure. So the Ferrari Racing Days, then a packed mix of so many things going on track, and really to keep us all entertained throughout the course of the day. Wonderful stuff. Well, and that's the logo that means it all from Ferrari, the Prancing Horse. Beautiful shot there. And some of the scenic backdrop here in Laguna Seca. I remind you that Eric Marston then for Ferrari of Westlake was one of only two drivers that got it into the 126s, and pretty sure he's going to be happy with his performance during that qualifying session. Shay, bet he's got a smile on his face, hasn't he?
He does. Let's find out. Eric, just how much fun was it out there when it was that wet and wild?
I don't know if I'd call it fun, but it was challenging. It was hard to find, especially six, as you probably saw everybody losing it. On power down, like the exit of six, it was so wet. There was like one microfine line where maybe it wasn't, and I luckily found it. And yeah, it was very satisfying. Yeah.
With the gap of 1.3 seconds over second place, just how much more time was there out there?
I think if I hadn't caught traffic on my last lap, I might have been even another second ahead.
Wow.
Yeah, it was drying super fast. That's why we didn't cheer until the last person crossed the line, because it was getting better with every lap. So, yeah.
Well, you told me at Circuit of the Americas that you were excited to get one of these. Now you finally have. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Well done, Eric Marston, then. Pole position for Ferrari of Westlake for Shell. Race to come a little bit later. Thanks to all the drivers from our qualifying sessions. Thank you to you for watching. Bye-bye for now.